Facing significant struggles and seeking advice and support, I, a 49-year-old woman, reach out for guidance. Let's use the names Jan and Jerry for the sake of this discussion, though they aren't our real names. After posting, I'll delete this account to safeguard our privacy. My husband, Jerry, aged 50, and I have shared a blissful marriage for 27 years, blessed with two incredible children, a 26-year-old son and a 24-year-old daughter. Jerry remains my first and only true love, and our journey as a couple spans over 3 decades, beginning when I was just 18 years old. I fell deeply in love with Jerry, and our bond led to a proposal merely 7 months into our relationship. Eagerly, I accepted, ready to embark on a lifelong journey with him. At the time, Jerry was in his second year of college, while I worked at a local hardware store franchise in our hometown. Despite the plan being to remain engaged until his graduation and securing a job before tying the knot, I was fully supportive. This meant waiting nearly 3 years to walk down the aisle, but my love for Jerry was unwavering, and I eagerly anticipated our future together. The college Jerry attended was situated in the state capital, a little over 2 hours away from our hometown. Typically, he would return home almost every weekend, but occasionally, he stayed at school to focus on his studies or due to inclement weather. During those weekends apart, we relied on long phone conversations, as this was 3 decades ago, long before smartphones and texting became commonplace. It's amusing how antiquated it seems now, reminiscing about those times. About a year into our engagement, impatience crept into my heart, and I suggested expediting our marriage plans. I expressed my fervent desire to become Jerry's wife, fueled by fears of him meeting someone else at college. Jerry, however, reassured me of his unwavering commitment and love. He wisely pointed out that waiting would allow us to ensure our compatibility and financial stability before starting a family. However, it's at this juncture that I made a significant misstep. There was this guy, whom we'll refer to as Jim, an electrician and a frequent customer at the hardware store. Jim visited 2 or 3 times a week for supplies, and over time, our interactions evolved from friendly rapport to him making unwelcome advances. Apologies ensued as I informed Jim about my engagement, but he persisted, adamant about the strong connection between us. He confessed his willingness to take risks for just one chance with me. Despite my repeated assertions of commitment to Jerry, Jim's advances continued for weeks, creating a tension I struggled to navigate. Then came that pivotal weekend when Jerry unexpectedly revealed his need to stay at school for the following 2 weekends. It was a moment of vulnerability, a gap in my defenses, and in a lapse of judgment, I made the grievous decision to entertain Jim's company. Our outings transitioned from innocent dates to something more intimate, culminating in shared moments behind closed doors while his unsuspecting fiancée was occupied with work. Looking back, I see the folly of my actions, the clouded judgment that led me astray from the commitment I made to Jerry. I recognize the pain I caused, not only to Jerry but also to Jim's fiancée, Susie, whom I had never met but whose trust was undoubtedly betrayed. Yet, amidst the whirlwind of emotions and moral conflict, clarity dawned upon Jerry's return. His presence acted as a beacon, guiding me back to reality, to the promises I had made, and the love we shared. With a heavy heart, I severed ties with Jim, rejecting his tearful pleas for an elopement that would shatter the lives of everyone involved. It was a moment of reckoning, a realization of the depth of my love for Jerry and the gravity of the mistake I had made. The aftermath was painful, marked by the silence that ensued between Jim and me, the void left by his absence in the store where our paths had once crossed. Months passed, and life moved forward. Jim found solace in Susie's arms, while Jerry and I embarked on the journey of marriage, vowing to cherish and honor each other till death do us part. Our life together was one of contentment and joy, filled with shared dreams and cherished memories. Jerry assumed the role of provider and protector, while I embraced my role as a devoted wife and mother. Together, we weathered the storms of life, finding strength in each other's embrace and solace in the love we shared. However, the tranquility of our marriage was shattered 3 days ago, a consequence of my carelessness and a forgotten relic from the past. It was during a routine visit to the basement that I stumbled upon the cardboard box containing remnants of my youth, yearbooks, school mementos, and the diary I had meticulously maintained for years. The past Saturday, Jerry decided it was time to tidy up the basement and transfer everything from those boxes into plastic storage bins. He spent the entire morning cleaning down there. When he finally emerged, he didn't utter a word and headed down the hallway. Assuming he was tired and off for a shower, I paid it no mind. However, he remained in the bathroom for a good 45 minutes. Upon checking on him, he casually mentioned he was fine, just engrossed in some reading. Little did I know, he was actually poring over my diary, which he found in one of the boxes. As he emerged from the bathroom, he walked straight up to me, holding the diary with an expression of disgust and anger I had never witnessed before. Without a word, he opened the diary and began reading aloud the entries concerning Jim. Despite my pleas for him to stop and allow me to explain, he continued, his agitation mounting with each passing page. Tears streamed down my face as I begged him to halt, but he pressed on, his voice growing louder and more fervent. Once he finished reading, I attempted to speak, but he cut me off abruptly, instructing me to pack a bag. Confused and distraught, I asked why, to which he responded firmly, "You're going to your parents." Knowing further protest would only exacerbate the situation, I complied, packing my belongings in silence. Even as I pleaded with him, dropping to my knees and clinging to his legs, he remained resolute in his decision. His usual composed demeanor had been replaced by an intense fury I had never before witnessed. Leaving the house, I drove to my parents' place and recounted the events that had transpired. Their shock and disappointment mirrored my own. My parents, both 81 years old, held Jerry in high regard, considering him as their own son. Clarifying that the events occurred over 29 years ago and that I had remained faithful throughout our marriage did little to assuage their dismay. They were speechless, grappling with the revelation of my past actions. Despite numerous attempts to reach out to Jerry that night through calls and texts, I received no response. The following morning brought a call from my daughter, her voice filled with anger and disbelief. She recounted a video call with her father the previous night, during which he had divulged the events that had unfolded, leaving her reeling with questions and accusations directed at me. Jerry proceeded to send them a file containing the crucial pages from my diary, a move that left me feeling utterly exposed and embarrassed. I attempted to explain the situation to my daughter, hoping for understanding and forgiveness, but my efforts were met with cold rejection as she abruptly hung up the phone. Turning to our son for support proved futile, as he chose to ignore my calls, texts, and voicemails, leaving me feeling abandoned and alone in my distress. Desperate to salvage our fractured relationship, I made numerous attempts to contact Jerry, hoping to explain myself and seek his forgiveness. However, each attempt yielded no response, leaving me with a gnawing sense of dread and uncertainty about the future of our marriage. Despite spending the entire afternoon waiting for his return at our house, Jerry remained conspicuously absent, further deepening my feelings of isolation and despair. Eventually, I sought solace in the familiar embrace of my parents' home, where I found myself grappling with a whirlwind of emotions ranging from shame and regret to anger and frustration at the unfolding situation. Little did I anticipate that the turmoil was far from over, as I soon found myself at the receiving end of a vitriolic tirade from Susie, Jim's wife. In a venomous outburst filled with profanity and insults, Susie unleashed her fury upon me, warning me to steer clear of her and her husband if I knew what was best for me. Despite my attempts to defuse the situation and engage in a civil conversation, Susie abruptly terminated the call, leaving me shaken and rattled by the intensity of her anger and hostility. As the night wore on, I found myself grappling with a sense of helplessness and despair, compounded by the knowledge that Jerry was out drinking at a local bar, openly discussing the affair with anyone who would listen. The stark contrast between his usual composed demeanor and his erratic behavior fueled my anxiety and left me questioning the very foundation of our marriage. When Jerry finally returned home, his demeanor was a stark departure from the man I knew and loved. Tears streamed down his face as he confronted me with a barrage of questions, demanding to know how I could betray him in such a manner. Overwhelmed with guilt and remorse, I struggled to find the right words to express my profound regret, emphasizing that the events in question had occurred nearly 3 decades ago and were a mistake I deeply regretted. Despite my tearful pleas and assurances of love and remorse, Jerry's anger and disappointment remained palpable as he insisted that I leave and give him space to process his emotions. Heartbroken and devastated, I complied with his wishes, leaving our home with a heavy heart and a profound sense of uncertainty about the future of our marriage. During this tumultuous period, I find myself engulfed in a swirling vortex of uncertainty, grappling with the aftermath of recent events involving Jerry, Susie, Jim, and myself. As I reflect on the unfolding drama, I'm struck by the overwhelming sense of guilt that consumes me, stemming from the pain I've unwittingly inflicted upon Jerry, the man I've cherished for nearly 3 decades. The revelation that Susie has ejected Jim from their lives, with divorce looming on the horizon, has left me reeling. Witnessing Jim's emotional devastation serves as a stark reminder of the collateral damage wrought by my actions. Amidst the chaos, whispers of Susie's purported infidelity cast a shadow of doubt over the authenticity of her motives, leaving me to ponder whether her decision to brandish my diary as a catalyst for divorce is fueled by genuine grievances or ulterior motives. The spreading rumors within our close-knit community paint a damning portrait of Jim and me, casting us as protagonists in a sordid affair that unfolded decades ago. Yet, amidst the condemnation, there exists a glimmer of empathy from some quarters, with voices advocating forgiveness and understanding, citing the passage of time as grounds for leniency. As I seek refuge in the comforting embrace of my parents' home, I find myself torn between conflicting emotions. While I long to return to Jerry's side and begin the arduous journey of reconciliation, I'm disheartened by the chasm of misunderstanding that separates us. His perception of our marriage as built upon a foundation of deceit strikes a dissonant chord within me, for I steadfastly believe in the authenticity of our love and the resilience of our bond. In the midst of this turmoil, I turn to you, seeking guidance on how best to navigate the treacherous waters ahead. While I readily acknowledge the gravity of my transgressions, I remain hopeful that Jerry will eventually recognize the sincerity of my remorse and the unwavering commitment I hold towards our marriage. In an effort to heed the wisdom of your counsel, I've opted to grant Jerry the space he needs to process his emotions, assuring him of my steadfast support and readiness to engage in open dialogue whenever he feels ready. Despite the deafening silence that pervades our communication channels, I draw solace from reports indicating Jerry's apparent resilience in the face of adversity. However, as I eagerly anticipate my eventual return home, I'm confronted by the sobering reality of strained relationships within my family. The palpable tension between myself and my daughter serves as a poignant reminder of the far-reaching consequences of my actions, prompting me to confront the specter of regret that looms large over our fractured familial bonds. I've returned to my home, but the atmosphere is heavy with the weight of our legal separation, and I am utterly devastated. Upon my arrival, Jerry handed me separation papers, bluntly informing me that he had relocated all my belongings to the spare bedroom. Furthermore, he had taken the drastic step of installing a keyed lock on our once shared master bedroom, effectively barring my access. In its place, he set up a small fridge, a food storage cupboard, and a coffee machine, signaling a clear divide in our living arrangements. These days, our interactions are limited to brief encounters when he's leaving for work or heading out in the evenings. He's taken full charge of cooking, cleaning, and laundry, emphasizing that we will now function as mere roommates, devoid of any semblance of commitment. Despite my inquiries about the situation, Jerry either ignores me or dismisses my concerns, often with a callous remark about documenting our story for a future revelation, adding a layer of mystery to his actions. On multiple occasions, I've attempted to rekindle intimacy, only to be met with cold indifference as Jerry callously brushes off my advances, suggesting I find fulfillment elsewhere. It's bewildering to witness this transformation in him, as if our years of love and companionship have been callously discarded in favor of resentment. The situation grows even more perplexing as I hear reports from a close friend regarding Jerry's recent encounters with Jim, our town's social club serving as the backdrop for their strained interactions. According to my friend's account, Jerry's demeanor toward Jim has become increasingly hostile, culminating in a tense exchange where Jerry rebuffed Jim's attempts at reconciliation, even issuing veiled threats to deter further contact. This revelation fills me with fear, as Jerry's previous demeanor has never hinted at such aggression or hostility. I'm left to wonder if there's been a significant shift in his mental state, a departure from the kind and loving husband I've known for over 3 decades. For now, I'm abiding by Jerry's wishes, maintaining a quiet presence in the hopes that he'll eventually open up and engage in a meaningful conversation. To fill the void left by our fractured relationship, I'm contemplating seeking part-time employment to occupy my time, as Jerry has taken over the majority of household responsibilities. I must share an update on my current situation, and I commit to providing further updates should any noteworthy developments arise. Firstly, I want to express my gratitude for all the well wishes and blessings I've received. In this final update, I feel compelled to share that my circumstances have taken a turn for the worse. Jerry and I are now officially divorced, leaving me feeling utterly alone. As I mentioned in my previous update, we were living separately under the same roof, and I was diligently working towards reconciliation. We maintained this arrangement for 2 months, during which I held on to hope that things were improving. Then, one day, Jerry approached me with a solemn demeanor, devoid of the anger that had characterized our recent interactions. His words, however, shattered my spirit. He confessed that he no longer harbored romantic feelings for me and desired a divorce. Despite my fervent pleas and impassioned appeals, his decision remained unwavering. He cited the irreparable damage caused by my past infidelity and deception, particularly concerning my involvement with Jim. Adding to the devastation, Jerry revealed his plans to request a transfer to the Tampa office, relocating closer to his parents in Sarasota, our daughter in Orlando, and our son in Atlanta. This news left me reeling, grappling with the profound loss of our marriage and the shattered dreams of a shared future. To cope with this overwhelming situation, I've been attending therapy sessions 3 times a week, which have proven to be beneficial. My therapist illuminated the profound impact of the affair on Jerry, emphasizing that he is no longer the same person I once knew. She advised me to grieve this loss as if Jerry had passed away, recognizing that the man I loved has irrevocably changed. While my children initially grappled with anger towards me, they have since transitioned to a state of deep sadness over our divorce. They had held out hope for reconciliation, making earnest efforts to facilitate dialogue between Jerry and me. Regrettably, Jerry had already made up his mind, closing the door on any possibility of reconciliation. My parents, who regarded Jerry as a son and relied on his support, are now overwhelmed with sadness and despair. Despite my attempts to persuade them to move closer to me in Florida, they remain steadfast in their desire to stay in our hometown, clinging to memories of the past. I'm gearing up for a holiday trip to visit my son in Atlanta and my daughter in Orlando, which will keep me away for about 2 months. Surprisingly, when Jerry got wind of my plans, he reached out and extended an invitation for me to stay at his new place outside Tampa. I readily accepted, hopeful that this could be an opportunity for us to mend our relationship. Despite the pain of our past, I believe Jerry still harbors deep feelings for me, a sentiment echoed by both our daughter and son. I sense that Jerry needed to distance himself from the town and its painful memories, viewing our affair and subsequent divorce as a form of self-punishment. Now that he's taken this step, I'm optimistic that he's come to realize the enduring strength of our love and the possibility of reconciliation. As for Jim and Susie, their marriage has also ended in divorce. Rumors suggest that Susie was deeply affected by Jerry's relocation, having developed a close bond with him during their respective divorces. Despite her claims of mere friendship, whispers of a passionate affair between them persist. The thought of Susie visiting Jerry in Florida pains me deeply, but if his affair served as a path to healing, I suppose I can come to terms with it. Reflecting on my own actions, I'm burdened with regret for the foolish affair I engaged in nearly 29 years ago. I rue not disposing of that diary when I had the chance, considering shredding it but ultimately deciding against it. It's a decision that I now regret deeply, shaking my head at my own folly. Switching gears to another tale, let me share a recent experience from July. My wife embarked on a brief work trip from Thursday to Saturday morning. Later that Saturday evening, we attended my stepdad's birthday dinner and everything seemed normal. The following Sunday, we went about our usual routine, running errands and preparing for the week ahead. On Monday, as the workweek began, our communication appeared unchanged, exchanging our usual texts throughout the day. However, on my way home from work, my wife texted me about a potential yeast infection she planned to get checked out. In a lighthearted response, I jokingly mentioned the possibility of it being an STD. She laughed it off initially, but a few hours later, she sent another text expressing discomfort with my comment, questioning if I suspected her of cheating. Her reaction struck me as odd at the time, prompting further reflection on our relationship. I shrugged off her initial remark, not paying it much mind at the time. Yet, looking back, that seemingly innocuous comment was perhaps the first hint of trouble brewing beneath the surface. 2 days later, she mentioned her condition had worsened, prompting another visit to the doctor. Sympathizing with her discomfort, which had escalated beyond her usual experiences, I tried to be supportive. When she returned from the doctor's office, she disclosed the added diagnosis of thrush alongside the severe yeast infection. My understanding of thrush was vague, and she humorously explained it as a throat infection. Jokingly, I advised her to keep her distance if contagious, simply wanting to avoid catching anything myself. Reflecting on these interactions now, they stand out as the initial warning signs that something wasn't quite right. In the subsequent days, she spent most of her time confined to bed, battling her illness. Despite calling in sick to work, she made efforts to manage some tasks remotely. I observed her from a distance, feeling a mix of sympathy for her suffering and a sense of helplessness in my inability to alleviate it. As her health gradually improved over the following week, I began to notice subtle shifts in her demeanor. One day, finding her in tears on the couch, I probed gently into what was troubling her. That's when she dropped the bombshell she intended to seek counseling. The notion struck me as odd, and I offered my support, suggesting we attend sessions together or explore counseling options as a couple. However, she declined, citing a need to address her own feelings first. This marked another significant red flag in my mind. A few days later, finding her in tears once again, this time on the edge of our bed, she expressed existential questions and doubts about the direction of our lives. Her words caught me off guard, leaving me momentarily speechless as I struggled to grasp the depth of her concerns. Then, on August 14th, as we prepared for bed, her tears returned once more. Sensing the gravity of the moment, I reassured her of my unwavering love and commitment to working through any challenges together. Yet, her response hinted at deeper fears, as she hesitated, questioning whether revealing her thoughts would jeopardize our chances of reconciliation. I had a one-night stand, and in that moment, all the warning signs, all the little things that had been happening in the preceding weeks suddenly fell into place like pieces of a big puzzle coming together. Here's the story. After finishing her work for the day, she decided to stop by a bar for a drink before returning to her hotel. She sent me a picture of the beer she was having, and I responded with the usual love you, good night. While she was at the bar, she struck up a conversation with a guy who happened to share my name, of all things. They ended up chatting all night, having a few more drinks, and eventually left the bar around 2 a.m. They went to his place, where she engaged in intimate acts and they eventually had unprotected intercourse. I asked her if he finished inside, and she claimed he didn't, saying he pulled out and did it on her stomach, but I couldn't be certain. It turns out he had herpes simplex virus and transmitted it to her. I distinctly remember feeling completely heartbroken, devastated, shocked, and in utter disbelief when she disclosed all these details to me. I struggled for months after what we refer to as Discovery Day. It affected me to the extent that I had to take medication for a while to stabilize myself. I knew something was physically wrong because I felt terrible all the time, and as it turned out, my blood pressure had soared to 149. No wonder I felt so awful. To provide some context, I would say we had a strong marriage. We were often regarded as the favorite couple by everyone, and even my father likened us to Ken and Barbie. I'm sharing this to emphasize that we weren't a dysfunctional couple with glaring and obvious marital problems. However, what transpired challenged that perception. When I confided in some of my closest friends and family, they all reacted with wide-eyed astonishment and the same "Are you serious?" response. It was a total shock not only to me but to everyone who knew us. She's been seeing a counselor throughout this entire period, delving deep into every aspect of what happened, the reasons, the methods, the details, all of it. She's confessed to me that she doesn't know why, out of all the times she's been approached by guys, she gave in this time. However, in the grand scheme of things, the reason doesn't matter much because what's done is done, and it takes just one incident to bring a marriage crashing down. She did mention that he made her feel desired, gave her attention, and made her feel special, but she regrets her actions deeply. She was drawn to his attention and apparently, the compliments about her appearance boosted her self-esteem. If that was all it took, she has her own issues to confront, and unfortunately, she wasn't mature enough to address them or acknowledge that something was seriously wrong before it was too late. I acknowledge that it takes two to create a problem, and I played a part in all of this. Still, I can't accept responsibility for her actions, the way she treated me, herself, our marriage, and the harm she caused. However, I can recognize where I could have been a better husband. I should have been more attentive, more engaged, essentially more of whatever she felt she needed. It's been over a year and a half, and we're separated, but this remains a significant obstacle in my life. I've chosen to move away from her in our marriage, and it's a struggle because this was never what I wanted. She wants to stay together and work things out, but for me, the damage is too extensive. Over the past year and a half, I believe she has made genuine efforts to make amends, but with the STD involved, I simply can't. Knowing all the details of what transpired, I just can't bring myself to do it. And when I say I can't, I'm essentially saying I choose not to. The level of disrespect is too profound, the humiliation too great, and the act itself was entirely uncalled for and selfish. It's disheartening because she realizes she ruined what was once a perfectly normal marriage and wishes she could turn back time and have a do-over. However, she made a series of choices that night, each one leading her down that regrettable path. I doubt I'll ever comprehend how she could leave the bar with him, get into his car, drive with him, arrive at his house, go inside, and enter his bedroom. At every step, there were numerous warning signs, red flags, and alarm bells ringing, making it all seem almost unbelievable. But she willingly made every single one of those choices. I've made an effort to remain conscious of my pride and keep it under control, constantly questioning why I can't move forward with her. For me, it boils down to my values and principles. What transpired goes against everything I believe in and stand for, creating a lot of internal conflict. Then there's the whole STD aspect that will never fade away. It will always serve as a stark reminder of her actions. I choose not to put myself at risk of contracting it mentally and emotionally, it's just too overwhelming. Furthermore, I no longer see her in the same positive light or hold the same opinion of her. I've lost the respect and admiration I once had. There are many complex layers to this situation, and it's astonishing how something like this can completely alter your life both physically and emotionally. We've been together since 2007, got married in 2014, have no children, and aren't financially dependent on each other.